We have shell fishing do's and don'ts on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Friday, August 1st, 2014. I'm Sarah Mannel. A popular summer activity for many Cape Codders is shell fishing. Natural Resource Officer Amy Croteau says residents and visitors can actually enjoy the hobby all year long.
By and large, because we have a lot more people present in the summertime, there is increased shell fishing activity in the summertime. It is a popular recreational activity for our, seasonal residents, for our tourists, and also for our residents. One of the problems that we run into is that it's extremely popular to eat shellfish raw in the summertime, and because we have sort of warming water temperatures throughout the years, there are some concerns with people who harvest these shellfish and how they store them after they harvest them.
Croteau offers tips on how to keep shellfish safe after harvesting them.
Safe shell fishing approach this year with the public. And there are a lot of tiers to this approach, but basically it all starts when you're preparing to go out into the water. It's really important that when people go out shell fishing, they know where they're going is an open area. Ways that we help them to know whether or not they're in an open area are we have shellfish information boards that are posted at a number of the landings in town. We have them present at the Cotuit Town Dock, at Cordwood Landing, at Little River Road, and at Prince Cove, all of which are in Cotuit. We have them at Bay Street and Bridge Street, which are in Osterville. We have one at Eugenia Forts Beach in Hyannisport, and we also have information boards at Blish Point and at Scudder's Lane, which are both on the north side of town. These boards all have maps of abutting areas that all will show you the various types of openings and closures that the town has. Some of the closures can be for shellfish propagation purposes. We do have a seed program in the town, and if you see on a shellfish map an area that has an SP with a circle around it, that means that we've planted juvenile shellfish or seed there.
Sure.
These areas are off limits until the seed is ready or legal size for harvest. It doesn't have anything to do with contamination in those areas, but it is a closure that people should be knowledgeable about, as well as aquaculture grants also have closures. People rent space on the tidal flats from the town annually and run their private aquaculture businesses on those grants. Those areas are marked in yellow on our map, and those areas are also off limits to the public. If you are shellfishing on somebody's grant, you are effectively stealing.
And Croteau explains how to tell what shellfishing areas are open and which are closed.
There are two signs in the water that say shellfish propagation area closure, and then there will be buoys in front of those signs. The aquaculture grants are marked off by buoys. Inside of the harbor, they have yellow, green, and red buoys. And in the rest of town, it's just yellow buoys that mark off the boundaries of the borders of their grant.
Croteau says there are some areas in town that are closed due to shellfish propagation.
It changes periodically because we plant in different places all throughout the year. But one of the largest propagation area closures by far is the Scudder Lane recreational area. It extends all the way from the Barnstable Yacht Club to Scudder Lane, about halfway down to Calves Pasture, and that's where we grow all of our juvenile oysters throughout the season. The closures that people really need to pay attention to for their safety when they're eating their shellfish are the areas that are marked in red.
Another type of shellfish closure is a relay area closure. Croteau explains just what that means.
That we have contaminated shellfish that were planted in those areas, and those shellfish are currently unsafe for human consumption. Relays typically take place in the spring. We have a window of time from the beginning of May until the middle of June in which we're allowed by the state to do these contaminated relays. Because they take place in the spring and because shellfish are filter feeders and they need time to get those contaminants out of their tissues, those areas remain closed throughout the summer and typically reopen around the end of September when the meats test clean for people to eat them. The second kind of closure that we have, and this can be really confusing to all of our shellfishers, are shellfish closures that are related to water quality.
Okay.
These are areas oftentimes that will have seasonal openings and closures. There are places, sort of like Stewart's Creek, where those areas are prohibited, the inner Hyannis Harbor, places that the water quality is just very bad year-round, the Centerville River. But then there are places where the water quality is only bad for a portion of the year, and so those shellfish are unsafe to consume for a portion of the year. One of your best examples of this would be North Bay. North Bay is an extremely productive bay in Osterville, but it doesn't get enough tidal flushing to keep the water quality clear during the summer months. West Bay and Katuitt Bay, conversely, have a decent amount of flushing in and out from the Sound, and so their water quality stays very good during the summertime. But because North Bay doesn't get enough flushing and because the shellfish are feeding on the excess left over by boats and people and more animals, it's what we consider to be a winter fishery, and it closes annually May 1st and does not reopen again until November 1st.
Croteau says it's important to properly store shellfish after harvesting.
You know, you're out on the beach for the day, maybe you do a little bit of shellfishing, maybe you have a cooler with you. If you're out at the point on Standing Neck in your boat, you know, you do a little bit of shellfishing at low tide, but then you're still at the beach for a very long period of time. A lot of people will choose to what we consider wet store their shellfish in their baskets in the water, but we don't have water temperatures that will back off bacteria growth at this time of year.
Right.
Shellfish need to be kept at 40 degrees Fahrenheit and below in order to stave off any bacteria growth. And these are naturally occurring bacteria. It's not pollution-related bacteria. It's a simple, you know, these are animals that need to be refrigerated, much like, you know, milk. What we now are suggesting to people is that instead of transferring your shellfish into a bucket of, you know, salt water and then bringing it home, that no longer is considered a reasonable way to keep from bacteria growing in your shellfish. What we really want people to do is to take a cooler with you that has ice packs or loose ice in it. And then if you're not going right home to process your shellfish after you harvest them, if you're going to be out for a while, we strongly suggest that you put those shellfish on ice in order to keep them at a low temperature before you can bring them home.
Croteau also explains why oysters cannot be harvested in town of Barnstable beds in the summer.
A lot of the time people will ask us in the summer, you know, why oysters? Why don't we harvest oysters in the summertime in the town of Barnstable? And the reason that we don't is sort of tied to this temperature thing. Oysters don't dig into the ground like quahogs do and like steamers do, and at low tide they can be exposed to the hot baking sun for a number of hours, which then will create a situation where these naturally occurring bacteria will exponentially grow and can make you very sick if you harvest them and then eat them without properly
Croteau
cooling.
says while oysters cannot be harvested in the town's beds during the summer, you can still find raw oysters in local restaurants and fish stores. We'll be sure to tune into our hour-long news program Barnstable This Morning, weekdays at 7 a.m. On Monday's show, we will chat with Town Manager Tom Lynch, Superintendent of Schools Dr. Mary Schakowsky, and we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.